In this video, I am going to discuss with you about random forest algorithm. So what do you mean by random forest algorithm? And then I am going to discuss with you about how the intrusions, so intrusion detection model by employing this random forest classifier. So firstly, I am going to give a brief introduction to random forest algorithm. So what do you mean by this random forest algorithm? So basically, it can be used to solve any type of classification as well as regression problems. So that is the main use of this random forest algorithm. So it is used to solve classification as well as regression problems. So it's mainly used for classification problems. The forest, it is made up of a lot of trees, and more trees means more robust forest. So whenever as the number of trees is going to grow, so I have a very thick forest. So it is going to create some decision trees on data samples. It gets the prediction from each of them, and finally it selects the best solution by means of voting. So each and every type of algorithm, so it has got a basic working principle. So each and every type of algorithm, so it works in its own unique way. So it is better than the single decision tree. So it's going to reduce the overfitting problem by averaging the result. So it is better than the single decision tree. Clear with this? So what do you mean by this random forest algorithm? So whenever you consider this random forest algorithm, so all these are the different things. For example, this is my decision tree 1, this is my decision tree 2, and I have up to decision tree n. And I am having some training data samples, for example, training data 1, data 2, and then up to data n. So all these are given as inputs to my decision trees. So I can go for different types of ensemble techniques. For example, I am going for voting techniques, averaging techniques. So I can go for different types of techniques, and finally I am going to get the final prediction result. Clear with this? So what do you mean by this random forest algorithm? So this is what is called as the random forest algorithm. So I have this training data set. So this is my training set. From here it goes here. So training data 1, training data 2. So up to training data n. And then it is given to different decision trees. For example, decision tree 1. So instead of a single decision tree, I am going to combine the results of several decision trees. So that is the main working principle of this random forest algorithm. So instead of a single decision tree, I am going to combine the results of several decision trees. This is my decision tree 1, decision tree 2, and I have up to decision tree n. So whenever I am giving some training data samples, training data 1, data 2, up to data n. So this is my training set and this is my testing set. So based on different types of ensemble techniques, I am going for this voting techniques, averaging techniques, and finally I am going to get the prediction result. So what is going to happen in the future? So this is the basic working principle of this random forest algorithm. So based on my problem, so today I have took up intrusion detection. So you can take up any real world problems. For example, I want to classify the movies. Or I want to classify some diseases. Diabetes is a major lifestyle disease. So what is the major root cause of this diabetes disease? So I have different types of real world problems. Or I want to predict some other things. Rainfall prediction. So I can take up any real world problems, and based on my problem, so I can go for any of these algorithms. So I can go for random forest algorithm, or I can go for decision tree algorithm, support vector machine algorithm. So I have different types of techniques, machine learning models. So firstly, I need to look at the type of my problem, and based on my problem, whichever model suits my problem, so accordingly I have to go for different types of machine learning models. Clear with this? So this is the basic working principle of this random forest algorithm. This is my training data 1 and training data 2. So I have up to training data n. So decision tree 1, decision tree 2. So I have up to decision tree n. So I can go for different types of ensemble techniques. I can go for voting, averaging, and finally I am going to get the prediction result. So we are going to collect, we can go for different types of ensemble techniques. We can go for voting technique, averaging technique, maximum voting. So whichever decision tree gets the majority of votes, that will be the result of my entire prediction model, whatever algorithm I am using. So this is the basic working principle of this random forest algorithm. So whenever you are considering any type of machine learning model, so pictorially you can understand. So I have this training set. So I have all these training data samples. For example, training data 1, training data 2. So I have up to training data n. So I have decision tree 1, decision tree 2. So I have up to decision tree n. So I can go for different types of ensemble techniques. So I am going for averaging technique and finally I am getting the final prediction result. So what is the result of my random forest algorithm? So what are all the different assumptions you should make? So whenever I am going to discuss with you about any type of machine learning model, so what is the assumption? So whenever I am considering this random forest algorithm or decision tree algorithm, so I have to assume certain things. So what is the assumption I am going to make here? So you can use this random forest algorithm to do classification task as well as regression task. So based on my requirement, you can use this for classification. You can use this to solve classification as well as regression problems. So whenever you are going for any kind of machine learning model, so you have to make some assumptions. So this algorithm, it is going to combine multiple trees in order to predict the class of the data set. Clear with this? So instead of a single decision tree, so it is going to combine the results of several decision trees. So random forest, I am going to create some forest of some random order. From the term you can just understand. So what do you mean by this random forest algorithm? So it combines multiple trees in order to predict the class of my data set. So it's possible that some decision trees may produce the correct output but some other may not. Clear with this? So there should be some actual variables in the feature variable of the data set so that it can predict accurate results rather than guessed result. So all these are the different assumptions. So whenever you are going, as I was telling you, right, so we have different types of machine learning algorithms or machine learning models. You can go for random forest algorithm, you can go for decision tree algorithms, or you can go for SVM, support vector machine algorithm. So based on my requirement, you can go for different types of machine learning models or different types of machine learning algorithms. So this algorithm, it is going to combine multiple, it is going to combine the results of several decision trees in order to predict the class of my data set. The predictions from each tree, it must have very low correlations. So all these are the different assumptions. So intrusion detection model. So what are all the different cyber security using ML? So what are all the different types of intruders, what types of crimes, what types of attacks are occurring. So how I am going to predict this by using different machine learning models. So why you have to go for this random forest algorithm? So firstly, I just gave a brief introduction to random forest algorithm. So I just discussed with you about some assumptions of random forest. So next I am going to discuss with you about why, what are all the major reasons, so why I have to go for this random forest algorithm. So whenever I am going for any kind of machine learning model, so first you should understand, so what do you mean by this random forest algorithm? So I have made some assumptions. Whenever I am going to use any kind of machine learning models, it is based on some assumptions. So next I am going to discuss with you about why I have to use this random forest algorithm. So the training time is less. When I am going to compare this with other type of algorithms, the training time is less. It predicts the output with high accuracy. So all these are the different things. What are the major reasons why I have to use this random forest algorithm? So the training time is less when compared to other algorithms. It predicts. So whenever I am considering any type of algorithm, so I should consider the complexity of this algorithm. Whether it is more complex or less complex, and what are all the mathematical formulas used in this algorithm. So mathematically it is a complex one or a less complex one. So it predicts the output with high accuracy. So what is the aim of any kind of machine learning model? So whether it can be a supervised machine learning model or unsupervised machine learning model. So what is the aim of all these types of machine learning models? So I have to maximize the accuracy and I have to minimize the error, cost function or the error function. So that is the aim of all these types of machine learning algorithms. So it predicts the output with high accuracy and it works well even for large data sets. So whenever I have large amounts of data, so this random forest algorithm, it works well for large amounts of data. So even when large portions of data is missing, it maintains the good accuracy. So what are all the main reasons, major reasons why I have to go for this random forest algorithm? So all these are the major reasons, important reasons why I have to go for this random forest algorithm. So whenever I am considering any kind of machine learning models, it predicts the output with high accuracy and less error. So it works well for large data sets, and even when large portion of data is missing, it maintains good accuracy. So next I am going to discuss with you about different steps involved in the working of this random forest algorithm. So what are all the important steps involved in the working of this random forest algorithm? So basically it contains 4 main steps. So all these are the important steps involved in the working of this random forest algorithm. So firstly I need to start with the selection of random samples from the given data set. For example, I have some data set. You can imagine any type of problem. So I have some data set, so I need to select some random samples from the given data set. So next the algorithm will construct a decision tree for every sample. Clear with this? So I am going to select some random samples from the given data set, and next the algorithm will construct a decision tree for every sample. And the third step, voting will be performed for every predicted result. And finally, I have to select the most voted prediction result as the final prediction result. So all these are the different steps involved in the working of this random forest algorithm. So basically it contains some 4 main steps. So I can understand this random forest algorithm so with the help of this following steps. So it contains some 4 major steps. So firstly I need to start with the selection of random samples from the given data set. And next the algorithm will construct a decision tree for every sample. Clear with this? So all these are the different steps involved in the working of this random forest algorithm. So firstly I have to start with the selection of random samples. And next the algorithm will construct a decision tree for every sample. So after selection of samples, so I am going to construct a decision tree for each and every sample. And in the third step, voting will be performed for every predicted result. And finally, so I have to select the most voted prediction result as the final predicted result. So all these are the different steps involved in the working of this random forest algorithm. Clear with this? So basically internally, so whatever type of machine learning models I am going to develop, so you should understand, so internally how this model, how it works. So pictorially from this picture you can just understand. So I have a collection of fruits in a fruit basket. So I have some instance. And from this collection I am having some decision trees. Decision tree 1, decision tree 2. So I have up to decision tree n. So I have a collection of different decision trees. And I am going for different types of ensemble techniques. For example, I can go for maximum voting or some other type of ensemble techniques, and finally I am going to predict the type. For example, whether it is an apple or a banana. So I am going to predict the final class. Clear with this? So for example, apples, pineapples, grapes. So I have a collection of different fruits and it is given to different decision trees. From this I am constructing separate decision trees. This is decision tree 1, decision tree 2 and up to decision tree n. And majority voting. So based on maximum voting technique. So finally I am predicting whatever is the type of fruit. For example, it is an apple. Clear with this? So ensemble learning or collective learning. So what is the major difference between a decision tree algorithm and a random forest algorithm? So instead of a single decision tree, so I am going to combine the results of several decision trees. So what are all the major applications of this random forest algorithm? So firstly, I just gave you a brief introduction to random forest algorithm. So next I am going to discuss with you about the different applications of this random forest algorithm. So it is used in banking application, banking sector. It is used in medical industry. So if I want to analyze some trends, so based on the type of problem, so it can be used in a variety of industries. It is used in land use. So areas of similar land use can be identified by this algorithm. Marketing trends can be analyzed. So all these are the different applications of this random forest algorithm. So whenever I want to identify the loan risk, it is used in banking sector, medicine, land use, marketing. So all these are the different applications. So marketing trends can be analyzed by this algorithm. Banking sector, it is used to identify the loan risk. Whether a person is eligible for a loan or he is not eligible for a loan. So next I am going to discuss with you about the implementation of this algorithm, random forest algorithm. So I will just show you a simple example of implementing this algorithm. And finally, I will show you how to the intrusion detection model, how the intrusions are predicted by employing this random forest classifier. Clear with this? So firstly, I will just show you a brief implementation of this algorithm. Let me just show you a brief implementation of this algorithm. So let me just show you a brief implementation of this algorithm. Alright, 1 minute. So after typing my code inside the code cell, I need to click the run button. Alright. So you can see here, so I am just printing the head of my data frame. So firstly, let me just do the coding part and I will explain step by step. So what I am trying to do in this coding part. So let me just show you a brief implementation example of this. So I am separating the x and y values. So after typing my code inside the code cell, I need to click the run button. So after that, I am going for different types of classifiers. So it is stored in the variable y prediction. So I am importing classification report confusion matrix. So I am printing result 1, result 2. So let me just discuss with you about the implementation of this random forest classifier. So firstly, I need to import the essential libraries. What are all the important libraries that are required for my development? So firstly, I need to import the corresponding libraries. So I am importing NumPy as NP. So what is the use of this NumPy library? It is used for performing any kind of mathematical operations. So NumPy stands for numerical Python. It is used for performing any kind of mathematical operations. And then I am importing matplotlib.pyplot as PLT. And then I am importing the pandas library. So what is the use of this pandas library? It is used for performing any kind of data manipulation task. And then I am loading this iris dataset. I am providing the path where this dataset is available. It is stored in the variable path. So I am giving the header names. For example, sepal length, sepal width, petal width, class. So I am going to predict the flower species with the help of all these types of features. And using this alias name, there is an inbuilt function called readCSV function. So I am going to provide the entire path where my CSV file is stored and whatever is the names. It is stored in the variable dataset. And after doing this, so you can see I am printing the head of my dataset, sepal length, I have sepal width, petal width, class. And from this dataset, ILOC. So I am extracting all the values from the reverse, x and y values. They are stored in the variable x and y. And then I am importing the train test split module in order to split my data into training data and testing data. And finally, from sklearn.ensemble, I am importing this random forest classifier. So whatever is the type of algorithm, so I have to import the corresponding classifier from sklearn.ensemble. So I am just initializing this random forest classifier. So whatever is the type of algorithm, so I am just initializing this random forest classifier. And I am giving the number of estimators. So whatever is the number of estimators, I am giving the number of estimators as 50. Clear with this? So what do you mean by this random forest classifier? I am printing the confusion matrix classification report and the accuracy score here. So what do you mean by this? I just gave you a brief introduction to random forest classifier. So next I am going to discuss with you about intrusion detection model. So how the intrusions are being detected by employing this random forest classifier, random forest algorithm. So in the current trend, a huge volume of data is being generated. So many big data techniques and SVM classifiers and I have random forest classifiers are employed in order to predict. Clear with this? So what are all the different types of crimes that are happening? So currently in the existing system, what is happening? So I just gave a brief overview of this project. So what we are going to do in this project? So currently in the existing system, there are many different types of researchers introduced for intrusion detection system. So with the emergence of big data, traditional techniques become more complex to deal with big data. So I am going to show some researchers that use machine learning big data techniques for intrusion detection to deal with big data. So they have employed various other types of data mining, k-means techniques in order to predict the intrusions. What are the different types of intrusions or crimes that are happening? But what is the disadvantage of my existing system? Performance is not good and it is not suitable for all types of data. So first I need to look at the type of problem, what type of problem I am having in hand. Accordingly I can go for different types of machine learning techniques. And it is less efficient than the proposed method. So in order to overcome the disadvantage of my existing system, so I am going for the proposed method. So what happens in the proposed method? So in order to overcome the disadvantage of my existing system, I am coming for a proposed method. So in the proposed system, so you can see I am collecting the data sets from various sources. And then I am going to extract the features and I am going for different types of classifiers like random forest classifier in order to predict the type of crimes. So what are all the advantages of my proposed system? So various types of intrusions are predicted efficiently using the proposed method. Clear with this? And it requires small amount of training time and produce more accurate results. So whenever I am designing any type of machine learning model, so I should consider the complexity of my machine learning models. So whether it is a more complex one or a less complex one, so how much training time is required. So I should consider all these parameters. So it requires small amount of training time and it produces more accurate results. So when you look at the system architecture, so all these are the different blocks that are involved in the system architecture. So I have a training data. So I have data preparation, feature extraction, training the model. Clear with this? So after the testing data and I am finally calculating the accuracy score here. So what are all the hardware and software requirements that are essential to do this project? I require Windows 7, 8 or 10 64-bit operating system and packages. So all these are the different libraries that are essential for doing this project. So I require NumPy library, Pandas library, Iterators, Matplotlib, sklearn. So all these are the different libraries or packages that are essential to do this project. And in the front end, so everything is developed using the Python language. So all these are the different software requirements that are essential to do this project. 1 minute, let me just continue. And what are all the different hardware requirements? So I require dual core processor, 3.1 gigahertz speed and 4 GB RAM memory capacity. So all these are the different hardware and software requirements that are essential to do this project. So next I am going to discuss with you about the implementation of this project. So how the intrusion detection, how the intrusions are being detected by employing this machine learning models. So firstly I need to import the essential libraries. So what are the important libraries that are required for my development? Firstly I need to import the corresponding libraries. So after importing the essential libraries, using the alias name, using dot operator, there is an inbuilt function called read CSV function. So I am just reading the CSV. Whatever is the CSV file, it is stored in the variable df. And df.head function, it displays the head of my data frame, the first 5 rows of my data frame. So whatever is the duration, protocol type, service. And df.column. So what are all the different columns that are present in my data frame? So I have duration, service, flag. So all these are the different columns that are present in my data frame. And in the next step, there is one more inbuilt function called info function. Whichever inbuilt functions I have to call, using the variable name, using dot operator, I have to call the corresponding inbuilt function. So I am just calling this info function. It just provides an information about my data frame. So it contains some 49,020 entries. So what are all the data columns that are present? For example, I have duration, protocol type, service, flag, logged in. So totally it contains some 15 floating point types, 23 integer data types and 4 object types. So total memory usage, it consumes some 158.3 plus megabytes of memory. And df.shape attribute, it returns a tuple containing the number of rows and columns. The first dimension denotes the number of rows, the second dimension denotes the number of columns. And df.isNull function. So if there are any null values, I am summing up all the null values. So I am picking for column names in df.columns. For example, objects. So what are the different objects? I am picking them. And I am printing. So you can see here. So protocol type, it has 3 categories. Whereas service, so distribution of categories in service, I am sorting them in the descending order. For example, feature flag has 11 categories, label has 23 categories. Clear with this? So for example, this is my data set. This is how my data set looks like. So how I am splitting them into different categories. Clear with this? So all these are the different features. So how I am splitting them. For example, I have duration, protocol type, service, flag, source bytes, destination bytes. So all these are the different columns that are present in my data frame. So how I am grouping them into different categories. For example, service type, how many categories it has. Clear with this? And for example, I have flag type. So feature flag has 11 categories and label has 23 categories. Protocol type has 3 categories. So from sklearn, I am just importing this pre-processing module. So whatever is the essential modules, I have to import the corresponding module from sklearn library. So from sklearn, so I am just importing this pre-processing module. And using this pre-processing dot, I am just calling this label encoder. So I am initializing this label encoder. It is stored in the variable lab. And using this variable name, using dot operator, I am just calling this fit transform function. So whatever is the protocol type, it is stored in the variable protocol type. So I am just using this label encoder and I am applying this to service, flag. So it is stored in the different variables, protocol type, service, and then flag. And df dot head function, it provides the head of my data frame, the first 5 rows of my data frame. And df dot info function, it just provides an information about my data frame. So what are all the different data types of column present in my data frame. So label distribution training set, from this label I am picking the value counts. So all these are the different types of intrusions. So Smurf, Neptunes. So I have back, Stephen. So I am going to replace all these different types of intrusions with different numbers. Clear with this? So new df. So it is stored in the variable label. So in this label, so everything is replaced by zeros and ones. You can see here. So I am just converting to CSV, new data.csv. And SNS.countPlot. So I am giving the labels. For example, 0, 1, 2. So what are the different types of virus? I am showing the count. So in doing any kind of machine learning development, EDA, exploratory data analysis, it plays a very, very important step. And feature selection from sklearn.ensemble, I am importing this extra trees classifier. So data.iloc, I am having the x value and the y value. For example, not equal to label and equal to label. And model.fit function. So x and y are given as input and I am showing the important features. So I am showing in the form of bar heads and I am importing the train test split module from sklearn.model selection. So from sklearn.metrics, I am importing an accuracy score. So I am initializing this train test split module and all these parameters, x value, y value, test size equal to 0.3. So all these are given as parameters to my train test split module. And from sklearn.ensemble, I am importing random forest classifier. I am just initializing this random forest classifier and I am training. So fit function, it is used for training the machine learning model. X train and Y train are given as inputs. And finally, I am calculating the accuracy score here. 99.9% accurate. With this, I am just stopping this video. I hope I am clear with my topics. In this video, I discussed with you about random forest classifier and I discussed with you about intrusion detection models, how the intrusions are being predicted by employing this random forest classifier. If you have any queries, you can post your queries in the comment section. Remaining things, I will just continue in my next videos. Thank you all.